So are you one of those girls that looks at other pretty girls and thinks, oh, what a slut? Or are you one of those guys that looks at all those other pretty girls and think, wow, I want some of that? Or are you one of those girls that wish that you looked like one of those other pretty girls, looks at yourself in the mirror and goes, I'm so ugly? Or you're one of those guys that really, deep down inside, the reason why you're going to the gym is because you just want to get buff so you can get some? Or are you one of those friends that have ugly friends, or has people or so-called friends that you don't want to be caught dead hanging around with because they're just uncool or they're not really popular? Well, if you think like this, or if you do these kind of things, then perhaps you need to watch this video, because this video is about purity. And you're probably wondering, what the heck has purity got to do with all these things? Well, you're about to find out. And if you're someone that wants to get out of this kind of thing, then continue watching. Now, I could probably guess what you're thinking. You're thinking, who is Ray to judge me? I should be able to think whatever I want, do whatever I want, screw whoever I want. You know, why is Ray even talking to me about this? Well, this isn't about me judging you. This is about just practical common sense. The golden rule, do unto others as they do unto you. Now, if I called your mum a slut, or if, I called you a slut, or if I called you ugly, you wouldn't want that, would you? Okay, so we see others as sex objects, we see ourselves as sex objects, we see people as ugly, we see ourselves as ugly. You know, they're kind of hurtful things. So how do we stop being hurtful to others and to ourselves? It's all to do with being pure in heart. That's the solution. To be pure in heart. What the heck does pure in heart mean? Well, the Catechism of the Catholic Church actually states that the pure in heart are people who have attuned their intellects and wills to the demands of God's holiness, chiefly in 3 areas, and they are charity, chastity or sexual rectitude, and love of truth and orthodoxy of faith. Or in other words, purity of the heart, of the body, and of faith. Now, a saint that has actually thought this concept of purity through was St. Augustine. Now, St. Augustine has this really awesome quote: "The faithful must believe the articles of the creed, so that by believing they may obey God, by obeying may live well, by living well may purify their hearts, and with pure hearts may understand what they believe." So it all comes down to having faith in God. Really, that's the bottom line. Do you have faith in God? Do you believe that there is a God? I mean, we could talk about this in a whole nother video, but you've got to have that faith, all right? If you're someone that doesn't believe in God, pause this video and go believe in God, and then come back. Now, if you're someone that believes in God, then we can keep going. Now, if you believe in God, then that means that you believe in His commandments. So, what do you mean? His rules, the 10 Commandments, the Beatitudes. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Far out, more rules, more regulations. Why is the church limiting my freedom so much? Think about it like this, right? If you play basketball, for example, there are rules that you have to follow to play the game and enjoy the game. Now, if all the players did what they felt like, the game wouldn't be an enjoyable game of basketball. It'd just be whatever. And the umpire who's there, you respect the umpire because whatever they say goes, yeah? Well, think of it like the church. The church is like an umpire. You know, the Pope, the umpire. He doesn't make up the rules. All he does is ensure that everyone plays by the game. And where were those rules created from? God. God gave us these rules so that we, as human beings, His creations, can fully enjoy and participate in life. That's the whole point. That's the reason why we have these rules in the first place, so that we can be truly free. So, the first thing, love God, all right, and have faith in God. Second thing is to obey His commandments. Now, the third thing, that by obeying they may live well, and by living well they may purify their hearts. No one said that living these commandments is going to be easy. It is very difficult. Imagine trying as a guy to not have sex, even with yourself, for like, you know, a week, or let alone a month or a year. I mean, there are a lot of guys out there who I know who think, oh man, I couldn't even stand doing it for like 2 days. I mean, come on, you know what I mean? That's how hard it is, and that's what we're called to do. If you're someone that is addicted to pornography, masturbation, looks at girls like that, then you do have a problem. We must admit that what we're doing is wrong. Just because your friends do it doesn't mean it's acceptable. Of course it's going to be hard. By following these rules that God has given to us out of love, we may purify our hearts. That's what purifying is. It's not some, you know, pleasant, sensational feeling. It's painful. Very painful. Why is it painful? You know that saying that the spirit is willing and the flesh is weak? Well, our flesh is weak. Our flesh wants to commit sin. Our flesh wants to do the wrong thing and wants to rebel. From the very beginning, from Adam, we've always wanted to rebel. We were baptized into this church so that we'll be free from that, but we still have to struggle. That's what purifying is. It is bloody difficult. But that's what prayers are for. That's what hoping is for. That's what being there for your brother and sister is for. Well, one of the Beatitudes actually says this: "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Remain simple and innocent, and you'll be like little children who do not know the evil that destroys man's life. You know, when you were a kid, you didn't know about all this perverted stuff. But, you know, we're called to be like children in that respect, in terms of being innocent. Really, if you think about it, purity in itself is a battle. Now, the Catechism goes into a lot of great detail, very rich pages about the battle of purity. I'll just go over a few aspects with you that really stand out as something you should remember, and I should remember as well. You have to believe and have hope that you will change. Do you know that it's actually a mortal sin to have despair? What does that mean? That means that you have no hope. You can't see what God has planned for you. Well, that would make sense only because we're people who, you know, who are living in the darkness and don't understand where we are. If we put ourselves in the light and just obey God's commandments, even though we don't feel like it, well, then we'll be able to see the shadows that we create, and then see where we're supposed to be heading.
Now, God gives us the grace to overcome impurity. The following are tools given to us to do so.
Now, with God's grace, if you have hope, not despair, you'll be able to refine and become pure by the virtue and the gift of chastity. Okay? Because chastity lets us love with an upright and undivided heart. God will also give you a purity of intention. That means that you really have that zeal to be able to do what you're meant to be doing, not fussing about in your own sex for yourself and sex for other people. Also, by God's grace, you're given the purity of vision. What that means is that God gives you the grace to discipline your own feelings. Have you ever thought about that? The fact that you may be up at night watching pornography, do you know that you actually have the choice to turn off that browser? You have the choice to type in perhaps Catholic.com in the address bar instead of iwantporn.com, whatever. You have that freedom to be able to do that. You have the freedom to discipline yourself. You have the freedom to be able to refuse this complicated nature of looking at impure things, impure thoughts. In the Book of Wisdom, it actually says this: appearance arouses yearning in fools. Don't be caught out by what the evil one is presenting you. Yes, it's evil. Porn is evil. Googling and oogling hot chicks in the shopping mall is evil. Gossiping about how someone's body doesn't look as good as yours, or how someone else is ugly compared to other people. That's evil, okay? And we need to say it for what it is. It's evil. Once we've done that, God also gives us another grace, and that is the grace of prayer. Again, in the beloved words of St. Augustine, he says this: I thought that continence arose from one's own powers, which I didn't recognize in myself. I was foolish enough not to know. that no one else can be continent unless you grant it. He's talking to God here. No one else can be continent unless you grant it. God, unless God grants it. For you surely have granted it in my inner groaning, and had reached your ears, and I, with firm faith, had cast my cares on you. In the power of prayer, you actually submit to God in your mind, your heart, and your will that you don't want to be this sex fiend anymore, okay? You don't want to be this hurtful person anymore that hurts yourself and others. That's what you're doing in prayer. You're being quite frank and honest with God. You don't need to be formal with your prayer. Just be frank and honest. Just say, Lord, you know, I'm ugly. I hate myself. Can I just love myself, you know, the way that you love me? That's a good prayer. That's honest prayer. And that's a tool that God gives you to be able to get you out of being hurtful and impure. What can we practically do, all right, practically do in our day-to-day lives so that we can become pure people? What the Catechism goes into is the concept of modesty. Now, what's modesty? Modesty protects the intimate center of a person. It means refusing to unveil what should remain hidden. Well, for girls, don't wear those boob tubes and skirts up to here, okay? You're being a walking temptation to us guys. And to you guys who work out in the gym and like wear those Bonds tops that like really show all your pecs and your lats and all that, and then you walk around the beach like, you know, you can't even move your arms, you know, all that. You know, that is not modesty. You're a walking temptation to all the girls out there. You probably get a kick out of it because it makes you feel good. Being a walking temptation isn't what it's about. Yes, you're meant to cover it up. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that because you're making others or tempting others to sin, to take that image back with them home and whatever. We live in such a sexed up culture, and you got to admit, you know, if you're someone out there that thinks that this sexed up culture is a good thing, maybe you should look at this image of Dante's hell. Now, in this vision, you can see that, you know, having a sexed up culture with everyone's just screwing everyone, right? Really, there is no end to it. I mean, it's just pleasure after pleasure after pleasure. I mean, where's the real joy in that? I mean, think about it, you know, you're going to reduce the greatest form of pleasure to just rubbing genitals. That's not the greatest form of pleasure. The greatest form of pleasure is ecstasy, found when you really have true joy, you know. That starts with living modestly. That starts with being decent, okay? Let's not conform to this culture that wants us to have sex as much as we want. Think about it. You have the freedom to not have sex and to find, and I promise you, to find a happiness beyond just rubbing your genitals and making yourself feel good. There is a greater joy out there than just that. Modesty protects the mystery of persons and their love. It encourages patience and moderation in loving relationships. If you're someone out there who's in a relationship, modesty, dressing decently, makes the person wait. And waiting is okay. You know, you might think the church is only about having sex just to have children. It's not just that. And if you're a couple out there that doesn't even feel like getting married, if you don't want to get married to the person, to your partner, get out of it, really. You're wasting your time. So, what does this all mean? If you're someone who's pure in heart, you will be able to see people the way God sees them. You'll be able to accept people as your neighbor, no matter who they are, what they look like. Also, if you are pure in heart, it will allow you to see and perceive the human body, yours and other people, as real temples of the Holy Spirit. You'll be able to see people's bodies as God's divine, beautiful creations. And if you want to be able to see the way God sees, that's what purity in heart is. You need to struggle, as I said so many times in this video. So I pray for you all, for all of us, that we may continue to have pure minds, pure hearts, and battle for purity the way that God battled for us as well. May God be praised.